welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Charlotte and I am a third and final year nursing student at AUT. So even though I officially finished my second year of nursing school in December of 2022, I've only just received back the last of my grades. So they came through incredibly late, which was very frustrating because until that little grade box on Orion is filled in with your grade, you're not entirely sure if you've passed your second year or not. But yeah, they have come through. They did come through very late. Today is Friday the 17th of February 2023 and we start back our third year of uni in literally 1 week, so very late, but they did come through, so I'm not complaining. And I just thought that because I've got it back today, I got the little notification that last of my grades have come back, and I just thought because that's happened I would share my results and kind of go through the assessments and stuff that I did. But before we get into all of that, don't forget to like, subscribe, to all of that good stuff. But for now, let's just dive right in. So in my first year of nursing school, I did really well in terms of grades. First year was quite easy compared to second year, but I think that was mainly because we didn't have any placements and it was all just theory. And I also, in my second year, I've kind of talked about this a lot on my channel, I was struggling a little bit mentally and was finding it really overwhelming and quite tough. Yeah, so first year was definitely easier than second year and I did really well in my first year. I think in my first year we did 6 papers and I got 1 A-, 2 A's and 3 A+. If you want to see the full breakdown of my grades for my first year, I made a video on it, so you can go and check that out. In that video I had like a full breakdown of all of my grades and all of the individual assessment grades, and in my second year I did keep track of everything. I kept track of all of my grades and all of the assessments in my student planner, and then I messed up big time and threw out my student planner at the end of the year after my mental health placement. A really annoying thing about AUT is that they don't save the breakdown of your individual grades in your student file, so I don't have the full breakdown of my grades from last year. So I'm going to try my best to remember all of the individual grade breakdowns just off the top of my head, but just take it with a pinch of salt. The only accurate grades that I'll have are my mental health exams and the pharmacology exams because I actually had them written down on my computer, but all the other ones are just kind of me trying to remember what I got. So anyway, starting off with semester 1, I took 3 papers. They were Methods of Research and Inquiry, Fundamentals of Acute Nursing, and Māori Health. Methods of Research and Inquiry was a paper teaching us how to research and use academic resources. It was worth 15 credits and there were 2 assessments. Both were essay kind of assessments. One was on quantitative research and one was on that's Peaches, my mum and dad's dog. I'm looking after her. And then I've also got Juno down there, so if you hear little pitter patterings, that's those 2. But anyway, so I had 1 essay on quantitative research and 1 essay on qualitative research. What we had to do was we were given a journal article which fit one of those research types and we had to answer questions based on that type of research. That's what I remember the assessments being for that paper. I remember I did better in the second assessment than I did in the first assessment. Overall, I know that I got at least 1 A and 1 A-, but I can't remember which one for which. Overall, for Methods of Research and Inquiry, I got an A-. So Māori Health was the next paper that I took. It was also worth 15 credits and it had 2 assessments as well. This paper pretty much, it teaches you to critically think about different health models and also educates you about the health inequalities and inequities within Aotearoa. As I say, this paper had 2 assessments. One, I can't really remember the first one, but I'm pretty sure it was an essay, and the second one was a group project. And in that group project, pretty much we had to present a PowerPoint presentation and a speech which answered questions and introduced discussion about the different findings from the most recent Waitangi Tribunal. As I say, I can't remember how I did in the essay. I can't even remember if it was an essay. I just know there were 2 assessments for it, but I do remember that for the group project we got at least a B, which I was very happy with. Overall, my grade for Māori Health was a B+. So Fundamentals of Acute Nursing was the big paper for semester 1. It was worth 30 credits and it was also the paper where I had my first ever placement. So there were 3 assessments for this paper. The first 2 were short answer tests about acute conditions and pathophysiology. So I did really well in both of them. I remember being really prepared for both of them and feeling really confident about both of them. I got I know that I got an A+ in one and a A in the other. I just can't remember which one for which. And then the third assessment was our placement assessment. Whenever you have a placement, you have an assessment to do for it, and it typically consists of coming up with a Mahara portfolio. In your Mahara portfolio, you do a Gibbs cycle reflection, some personal reflections, you can do some self-directed learning, and then you also, on top of that, have to get, it's like 24 different competencies signed off by your preceptor at your placement, and you also have to do a student reflection on your practice and placement, and you have to get something signed off by your clinical educator. So the placement assessment is a really big assessment, and you're doing this while doing like 40-hour weeks, so it's very full on, very stressful. This was the first time I'd ever done a placement assessment, so I remember I was very confused with what to do with the Mahara, and I had no idea that I was meant to include research and evidence backing my reflections and stuff in the analysis part of my Gibbs cycle. So I only had 1 or 2 references for my Gibbs cycle, which wasn't great, but my clinical educator was the best CE that I had last year, and she took into account my progress and my feedback and my reflection, and overall for the placement assessment she gave me either an A- or an A, so I was very grateful and very happy for that. So overall for fundamentals of acute nursing I got an A, which I was so happy about. I was so happy about that. So moving on to semester 2, this was the semester where I was struggling to stay on top of everything, and I just felt really overwhelmed and often quite miserable. These grades are the ones I'm the most proud of because I had to work so much harder to get them, and the fact that I achieved these grades, I wasn't expecting them at all, and I'm so proud of myself. Again, in semester 2 I took 3 papers, and they were really intense big papers. So the papers were Pharmacology for Professional Practice, Long-Term Care and Disability, and Mental Health. So starting off with Pharmacology, this one was worth 15 credits. This paper was super stressful because there are no resits, so if you fail the paper then you have to resit it the next year. You don't pass it. This paper was assessed with 1 exam every single week. This exam was divided into 4 different sections based on the 4 different learning objectives. So I actually have the proper breakdown of my grades for this. So for learning objective 1, I got a 38 out of 48. For learning objective 2, I got a 43 out of 48. For learning objective 3, I got a 45 out of 48. And for learning objective 4, I got a 42 out of 48. So overall for my pharmacology exams, I got a total of 168 out of 192, or 87.5%. And because I scored 87.5%, that meant for this paper I achieved an A, which I'm so happy with. I'm just gonna let the dogs out, they want to go. Okay, so the next paper was Long-Term Care and Disability, which was also worth 15 credits, and I also did really well on this paper. I really liked this paper. I think it was one of my favourite papers of the year. This paper also had 2 assessments, 1 essay and 1 placement assessment. The essay I got within the A range. I don't remember the exact mark, but I was super happy with it, and my paper leader left this comment on my essay. She said that she thoroughly enjoyed reading my essay, that it was well researched and had a very thoughtful discussion of both the concepts and the application to challenges for those with diabetes and to nursing practice, because I did my essay on diabetes. She said that I presented an exemplary discussion, it was comprehensive, and the literature was well integrated throughout. And then she said that she hopes that I will go on to do postgrad studies once I'm registered, and that I'd enroll in the postgrad paper that she runs. Yeah, I just remember reading that and being so taken aback and just overwhelmed by how sweet and how kind it was. And you know, as I say, my second semester I was really struggling, and that comment just kind of gave me the boost of motivation that I needed just to get myself through the rest of the year, to get myself through my final 2 placements, and just really keep putting my all into my work and everything. So I don't remember the exact grade for that, but I do remember doing really well in it and getting that comment, which was very unexpected and just so lovely to have. I also did the placement assessment, so it was the exact same as the fundamentals of acute nursing placement assessment. The difference was that for the Mahara, we had to show evidence of 2 hours of self-directed learning for every single day that we were on placement, because your placement is meant to be like 8 hours a day, and because I was at primary school it was only 6 hours, so in order to make up the time we had to show evidence that we were also doing self-directed learning. So that was a huge assessment because of the self-directed learning, and you have to, you know, properly reference it, have, you know, academic sources, have a good discussion. So it was a big paper. Again, I don't recall the exact grade, but I do know that I got an A range for this assessment too. And overall for long-term care and disability, I got an A, which again, I was so happy with and super grateful for. So finally, my last paper of the year was mental health, and that was worth 30 credits, and this was the paper that I struggled the most with. I'm not too sure if it was the content that was overwhelming or upsetting to me, or whether it was just difficult to focus on, but I was very behind in this paper all the way through semester, and there were multiple points during it where I thought that I was definitely going to fail the paper and just do really badly in it. So mental health also had 2 assessments. One was the placement assessment, which was exactly the same as fundamentals, and then one was an exam, which again was split into 4 parts to match the different learning objectives. So for my placement assessment, my CE told me that he had marked it as an A, so I'm just assuming that I got an A for it. And then for the exams, I did really well in them. So each of the 4 sections was 20 questions, and you had to get at least 10 questions right on each exam in order to pass. So 2 parts of the exam I got 19 out of 20 for each, and then the other 2 exams I got an 18 out of 20 for each. So I got a 74 out of 80 overall. The reason why I did so well on these exams, just for full transparency, was because I had done the practice exams the course leaders had provided to us. So I did these exams religiously, I did them every single day, and the paper leaders were really lazy because they had just copied and pasted the practice exam questions into the real exams. When I was taking the exams, I had already seen all the answers and already knew all of the questions, and I think out of the questions there were only 6 that I had never seen before and had no idea about, and those were the 6 questions that I got wrong. So being honest, I'm very torn about the mental health exam, because on one hand, because I was, you know, struggling at the time and feeling really low and overwhelmed, when I opened up the exam and realized that I was actually going to do really well in it, it was a relief, and it took a huge load of pressure off of my chest, and you know, it was really good for my well-being. But on the other hand, I'm like, this was an assessment and I don't feel like my knowledge of the content or the topics was adequately assessed, and I already have a pretty low view of standardized exams. Like, I don't feel like they're a good marker of intelligence or knowledge, and this exam kind of made my opinion of them even lower. It kind of felt like we were cheating the system a little bit, just because we're going to be nurses and we have a huge responsibility to look after people, and we're dealing with people's lives and people's families' lives. Like, it is a huge responsibility, and when you get like cheap, lazy exams like this, it kind of feels like the responsibility isn't taken as seriously as it should. You know, that was my experience of the mental health exam. On one hand, I was incredibly grateful that it was that easy and that they had done that, but on the other hand, I was like, this is meant to be an assessment and this isn't really, like, this doesn't feel like much thought was put into it. Yeah, I just thought I would share my experience of that and the reason why I did so well, just because I want people to understand that good grades are a result of hard work and studying and, you know, people putting the time and effort into things. But on the other hand, there is also kind of an element of luck, and it's not always just study, because if those exams hadn't been set up like they were, I would have done really badly. I know for sure I would have gotten a bad grade just because of the headspace that I was in and the fact that I hadn't really put much work in. I was behind in the lectures and stuff, so I know for a fact that I only got a good grade on that exam because the practice exams had been used for the real thing. So I just wanted to be transparent and share that with you guys. So this was the last exam grade that I got because the uni had officially closed and we were still in placement. There was no one to mark our placement assessments and get the grades up until they had this huge meeting in January or something. So I only just got the results back, and end of February. But anyway, the overall grade that I got for mental health was an A, and I was the most surprised about this grade. I was so sure throughout the whole semester I was going to do really badly in it. Yeah, I'm so grateful that I got that grade. I also feel like there was an element of luck for that paper in particular. So overall I did pass my second year, which I'm so relieved about. I did a little bit worse in first year in terms of grades. I got 1 B+, 1 A- and 4 A's. However, I do feel like I was more successful than in my first year just because of the obstacles that I faced internally and the effort that I had to put into getting those marks. So that was today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it and found it helpful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. I'll see you next Monday with a new video. Until then, have a lovely day and a fabulous week. Bye! That means you're extra, extra, extra.